welcome to No Hair, All Heart. I'm your very bald host, Mookie Spitz, and I have a fellow follically challenged gentleman here, Mr. Craig DeLarge.
Yes, good to see you again, Mook. Good to see you, man.
Welcome aboard the pod. Thank you for making time.
Yeah,
Craig
absolutely.
and I go way back. We are
Yes,
former colleagues and current always friends.
always. Absolutely. It's really good to see you, man.
Great to see you too. And you've been a busy man, evolving your career, transforming yourself.
Yeah, as long as my family members wake up in the morning, I gotta wake up in the morning and get to work, man.
Keep the lights on, Craig.
Exactly,
And you've been doing a great job. Tell us about your latest venture.
Certainly will. So since leaving, I would say the pharma bureaucracy 9 years ago now. Time flies when you're playing and having fun. I have been playing at. I call it my serious play. This small consultancy, Wise Working Leadership, within which I focus on 3 areas. So one, a lot of time training, facilitating the development of and coaching executives and leaders within biotech and the pharmaceutical industries. The second area is doing a lot of advising of founders, investors, and implementers in the digital mental health space. So this is where I've kind of brought the 20 plus years of digital health work I did when we were in pharma and merged it with more than 15 years of work that I've done on a parallel track in mental health advocacy and education. A lot of that work with the National Alliance on Mental Illness. So I've kind of merged those two. So the digital mental health space is an area that I really love to contribute in. And then the third area is a program that my wife and I have developed where we have been educating citizens in this area of technology-enabled wellness, which has to do with how do we use the technologies that we're already using every day for distraction, disconnection, escapism. Unfortunately, we increasingly hear about suicide. How can we use those same digital technologies to improve our wellness, to sleep better, eat better, move more, relax more, have better relationships? So technology-enabled wellness is this area that I'm really enthused about, and I think is one of the great unrealized opportunities we have as a society. So that's what I'm working on these days.
Sounds exciting. So it sounds like Jonathan Haidt, who did the awareness building around the dangers of technology, especially for our kids, media saturation, the blue screen of death for childhood development and our own. Little bit of Eric Topol there, some digital health leadership, and a couple decades of your experience as a digital health and marketing expert.
Yes, yeah.
Working with some of the biggest companies in the industry. That's how we met, when we met.
Yes, indeed. Yeah. You could say I've stripped out the work and I'm left with the play.
That is a good thing. So you're no longer working a day in your life because you love what you do, and it sounds like you're bringing benefits along the lines that shine not only with your strengths but with implicit needs and pain points that are out there as far as public health goes.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
And as far as leadership in some of the companies that you're representing right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is again my serious play phase. I'm about to turn 60 this year, and I'm blessed that I've been able to cultivate a freelance portfolio practice where, again, for the most part, I've been able to find people who are willing to engage me, people and organizations that are willing to engage me to do work that is play, and to kind of get along doing that assisting the bureaucracy, but without having to go back into the bureaucracy. I mean, from time to time, I have fractional executive roles where I'll go in for a period of time and I'll work as a temporary executive within an organization, helping them with a particular problem. But for the most part, I'm kind of in and out, fairly quick.
Yeah, again, best of both worlds.
Exactly.
Using your strengths
Exactly.
to bring about the
Yes.
change that
Yes, indeed.
you value so
Yep.
much. So much.
Yep.
Give us an example of some of the specific projects that you're working on. Again, with respect
Sure.
to your clients and
Yeah. Yeah.
how you're doing what you do, but give us a flavor for the value
Sure.
you're providing.
So I can tell you. So let's see. I'll try to give you one from each kind of sector of my work. So one project that I'm working on right now in the area of the design and development of learning experiences is I'm working with a company training a group of their senior executives in the areas of strategic thinking, strategic storytelling, and consultative negotiation. Now, the topics are relatively generic. There's a lot of content out there about the topics, which is why the experience is the differentiator. We're very deliberately working with a pedagogical model that is assuring that the executives are spending more than 75% of the time of the experience in practice versus just listening to someone speak, in that case, myself. We are making sure that we're moving them through a path that goes from getting knowledge to personal reflection on that knowledge in terms of how it applies to their work, to group reflection with their peers, then to play, actually, I should say to game playing, right? Which is a fun, highly interactive, engaged, sometimes using role playing so that even while they're in the midst of the experience, they're getting the opportunity to get both the fun and the stress of having to use these new skills and in scenarios that are highly relevant to the work scenarios that they work in. So that's one example that I'm having a lot of fun with.
So
And because
is that just management optimization, or is it focused on particular problem solving?
I would say is skill optimization within a particular context that is directly related to the job that they're doing. Where a
Okay,
lot
and
of
this is in
training,
healthcare, life science, senior
yeah, life
management, just so
sciences, exactly.
we
Absolutely.
contextualize this. So
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
you're doing high level yet impactful work for healthcare and life science
Yes.
executives based
Yes.
on the 20 plus years of experience that you've had in pretty much
Yes.
similar roles, coupled with
Absolutely.
your storytelling chops
Yes.
and your empathy and sensitivity. Okay.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Right. The second one I would say within the domain of advising digital mental health firms is so I work with a lot of accelerator and incubator organizations where, because of my deep expertise in this space, they bring me in or they keep me on a roster of advisors where I am first helping them to scout companies that would be good candidates to come into their program. Then, in the next stage, helping with the review and the selection of cohort candidate companies that would be admitted into their program. Then, once these companies are in the program, contributing from the standpoint of delivering workshops that help the founders with their education, and also in cases working with founders over time frames, usually 6 to 12 weeks, where I'm helping them with specific problems or networking or strategy development that is a part of their go to market. Because I spent my time on the commercial side of life sciences. The best contribution that I can make is usually around go to market strategy, communications, preparation for pitching their business models for investment or partnership and that sort of thing. So I've spent a lot of time. It's very rewarding in that area. And that's also coupled with doing some writing and research from time to time that's related to that space, digital mental health.
This is healthcare life science startups,
Absolutely.
obviously. And then you got a lot of activity in that space because
Yeah.
you've got amazing developments in technology,
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
new drugs, new medical
Absolutely.
devices, and
Right.
now AI
There you go.
is
Right. Yeah.
coming all over the
Right.
place. So how are so on the one hand, you're helping legacy companies and executives adapt
Yes.
to the playing field and optimize what they do and how they do it based on your
Yes.
experience. And
Yeah.
on the flip side of that same coin, you've got startups with new founders, some of
Right.
whom are entering this field maybe with tech know-how and not so much sensitivity
Yes.
to healthcare,
Absolutely.
maybe
Yes.
healthcare
Exactly.
experts who don't understand the technology, that kind
Exactly.
of
Right.
right,
And
right.
not just helping the startup with how they need to prepare to enter the market, but also helping the executives in the companies to understand how they can more effectively work with those startups. So I'm kind of contributing on both sides.
Yeah, so
And
you
then,
bridge the gap based
exactly.
on
Exactly.
playing roles in both actually
Exactly. Yes,
with your direct
exactly. Right.
experience.
Right.
That's terrific.
And then the third area around technology enabled wellness, well, here, once again, my wife and I, in our research in looking at this industry space, sort of came to the realization that there are more than enough people developing technology. There are unfortunately too few people that are adopting the technology in a way that they're staying healthy. And so there are too few people working on literacy, which is about helping people to understand how and which technologies to adopt, and then on adopting those technologies, how to use them in a way that improves versus eroding their health. So we've developed a keynote talk that we go to organizations to deliver a workshop for those organizations that want to go from just getting knowledge to actually practicing with and planning personal digital wellness strategies to having an online course. So we're able to actually deliver this content live, um, virtually, and asynchronously.
So this
So,
content that you're talking about is meant for really the distributors and disseminators of ostensibly public health empowering information.
so there's
And
an app.
the gap that you're seeing is that the stuff they're creating and letting loose doesn't always resonate as well as it could with the target audience. Am I reading you well?
Yeah,
Is that
or I would say more. Let me add on to that to say the target audience, everyday citizens, are doing what they're largely educated to do, which is to be clickbait for large corporations that make money off of their use of the technology, in which case the technology is using us. What we need is an increased discourse and awareness in our society of how, one, we need to protect ourselves from just being used by technology companies. And we then need to assert ourselves to use the technology to support our wellness. So, this is now going to be applicable to everyday citizens. It's going to be applicable to professionals that work in health and social care. It's going to be applicable to professionals that work on the wellness side of the equation. This then is going to impact schools. It's going to impact um, law enforcement. It's going to impact. There's another area that I'm not thinking of that's getting away from me, but you get my point, right? Any and everyone, any and
what advice are you giving in terms of the actual
oh,
content that's
so
shared
we're walking,
or
we're
best
yeah,
practices for engaging with content?
yeah.
Add a little specificity to the end
Gotcha.
game.
So we're walking people through kind of four considerations. First consideration, what's stressing you out? What are your sources of stress? There tend to be four categories. You're being stressed out by your thoughts and feelings. You're being stressed out by other people. You're being stressed out by activity. In our case, in our society, there is an epidemic of sedentary lifestyles, which is too little physical stress that's actually hurting us.
Oh,
Or you're being stressed out by environmental factors, noise, pollution, right? All right. Once you understand what your sources of stress are, next question is, how do you cope with that stress? Here we talk about the 5 pillars of wellness. So we cope with or heal from stress through good sleep, 7+ hours a day, good movement. U.S. government says we need 150 plus minutes of moderate activity a week, good relaxation, the ability to regulate my emotions, good diet, plant-based with good hydration, and hopefully mindful, slow community, participation when we eat, which we know too little of that goes on. And then the 5th one is our relationships. We need to be continually sharpening and improving our capacity to engage in relationship in a productive manner. For every one of those sources of stress we talked about, there is a way of coping with that stress. 5 pillars. Now, third question. Technology impacts all 5 of those areas of wellness, and it does so usually through 4 modes. Technology gives us the ability to accelerate education, getting knowledge. It can accelerate our ability to practice and to develop skill around the use of that information or education. The next thing technology does, it can accelerate community, finding other people who are in the same situation we're in, working on the same problems, and getting and giving support to those people. And then the 4th area, measurement. We've got all these sensors around us now, right? A lot of them right here in our phones. But we're not using those sensors enough to understand how are we practicing wellness appropriately? And of course, being human beings, when do we fall off? And then when do we need to recommit? Okay.
okay,
So
I got
by
you.
the time you answer, those 4 questions, I'm sorry, I forgot the 4th one. What is your digital lifestyle?
Yeah.
Everyone has a digital lifestyle. Most people don't think very much about it. But all of us in a given week, we favor certain devices, certain channels, and certain content. By the time you answer those 4 questions, you are in a position to put together digital wellness experiments that fit how you already use technology, that give you the ability to then use your smartphone, your smartwatch, your digital television, your YouTube channel subscription, your social media subscription to support better sleep, movement, relaxation, eating. You get my point.
Yeah. So originally I thought you were on the content development side, but you're on the recipient side offering best practices for
Yes.
solving the problems, as I mentioned earlier, folks like Jonathan Haidt have brought to everyone's attention.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. They define the problem.
instead of the phone being a killer, it could be a facilitator if you know how to use it expeditiously. And if you take ownership of your own health and wellness,
there you go. Right.
Adopting the best practices that
is
you
right.
share.
So we like to use the term, we want to help people move from a stance where their technology is stress inducing to wellness enhancing.
Right.
We recognize that all technology is fire. You can cook dinner with it, but you want to cook dinner without burning down the house. None of us would suggest that because fire can burn down our houses, that we should stop cooking dinner. But what we do is we develop skill and literacy in how we use the fire so that we only cook dinner and we don't burn down the kitchen. Right? Okay. So this is again, one of the greatest unrealized opportunities that we have in our society. and AI has only increased the ante.
Right. Before we jump into the AI pool,
Okay.
which is already deep and enormous,
Yes.
uh, how are you getting the word out there? So you're
Oh,
offering these best practices
yeah.
to whom, and then how
Yeah.
will it ultimately impact the general public who needs to hear about this stuff?
Yeah. Yeah. So the ways that we're getting the word out is via networks of people that we know in corporations that are responsible for employee wellness, people that are in the public health sector, and the, I'll say, citizen wellness sector, people that are in schools and universities. Again, we work with lots of accelerator incubator programs. So that gives us the opportunity to frame this as founder wellness. And then we do a lot of work in the mental health and wellness space as advocates. So it's a slow grind, like most new ideas are. We are part of a small global network of people that are working in the digital wellness space. We've got at least a decade ahead of us before this becomes everyday language. I'm going to acknowledge that. And so there's our networking. We put a lot of information on social media. We are always and increasingly applying to conferences where wellness and health, particularly community health, are being discussed and talked about, and considered. Um, so that's how we're getting the word out. Now, when you talk about the impact on community, well, unfortunately, because we live in a sick care versus a um, we live in a sick care versus a healthcare society. We call it healthcare, but really we're more interested in sick care. What that did,
It's reactive instead of
yeah.
predictive, right?
So what that then means is that for wellness topics like this, there is a relatively low sense of urgency and a low set of incentives that will get people to move quickly. There's not as much money in it. And being human, we are what do we say? We are symptom sensitive. So when the symptoms go away, we tend to get lazy and complacent about action. So I will admit that there is a subset of the society that tends to be wellness oriented and that tend to be early adopters and pioneers in this area. That's who we're focusing on. That is the tip of the spear. And as you know, you got to have a tip of the spear to penetrate anything, and then you can expand from there. But that really is where our focus is.
Yeah, here's a slightly tangential observation. You
Go.
and I cut our chops in the pharmaceutical, right, and
Yes,
treatment space.
yes, yes.
And and pharma gets dinged all the time. Politically, it's everyone's whipping boy when it comes to drug prices and
Yep,
corporate greed.
yep,
What was always astonishing to me is how much the insurance companies get off the hook. They
yeah,
have exponentially higher revenue overall.
yep,
And the reason I bring up this disparity between focus on pharma, providers
yep,
versus the managed care side is everything that you talk about could be incredibly beneficial for reducing healthcare costs. If you've
yes,
got a healthier population that adopts the best practices that you're espousing, and everyone gets healthier, and we shift from sick care to
to
true
healthcare.
health care in a
Yeah,
preventative kind of way. We adopt the
yeah,
quantified self kind of practices that you're
yes,
bringing up as
yeah,
well
yeah.
for measurement. The managed care side could deeply benefit, and I never quite understood why this behemoth of an industry doesn't put more time, energy, and money into initiatives like what you're describing.
Well, part of the good news is that increasingly there are enlightened initiatives within insurance companies that actually are taking, we often hear it as health equity or social determinants of health into consideration. Many would say they're late doing it, and others would say that they're doing it of necessity because they've milked other sectors, other profit, zones within the population already. Um, so that's just to be hopeful. But in the overall scheme of things, I agree with you. Again, let me put it this way. This is a thought I was having when you were speaking. If insurance companies were benefit corporations that gave them the latitude to focus on social and environmental profit as much as financial profit, they then would have more leeway to focus on wellness and prevention. But
Yeah,
because they have to focus on financial, and we have constructed a system and an ecosystem where you can make more money off of sickness, then we'd have to change the incentives of the system in order
but
to
this
get
is
a
what I
different
don't
system.
understand, and I don't mean to say anything disparaging
No, go
or
ahead.
complimentary about any industry here. I'm
Gotcha.
really trying to get to the source of part of this problem, and you bring up the financial benefit
Yeah.
to insurance companies, ostensibly of a sick population,
Yes.
but they have to pay these claims. They're the ones paying the claims.
Well,
So
Mookie, no,
why not
no,
espouse a healthier
no,
population?
no. Let me help you out. Increasingly, they are not paying claims, right? That's one of the elephants in the room. That the insurance industry is an industry of collecting premiums, but figuring out how to pay out as few claims as possible. And there's a really good podcast that I recommend called An Arm and a Leg. If you ever get around to watching it, and the guy there, he examines this. The other thing I want to say, you were talking earlier about reducing costs. Well, understand that every cost is someone's revenue and income. When people say to me, we need to reduce costs, they're usually saying that because it's not their income. There is not wasted. If you think that a flow of income or a cost is a waste, it's because it's not your income. But everyone who says, well, let me put it this way. When it's my income, I want to increase someone else's cost as much as possible because that gets the money into my income statement.
I still don't get it. Let's just say, and
Yeah,
I know we're getting off on this tangent, but I do find it interesting and relevant for this idea of improving public health through the lens of managed care benefit too.
yeah,
Let's say I pay $1,000 a month in my premium, right?
yeah,
Now, if I get cancer or even neglect my body and get diabetes, type 2 diabetes, if I don't take care of myself,
yeah.
that's going to incur cost to my managed care provider, to my insurance company to pay more for my health care than if I maintained a healthier lifestyle. To me, that seems fairly simple, an equation. And if initiatives like what you're espousing for the benefit of public health
Yeah.
get more practice, then folks like me will get my ass off the couch, less Mountain Dew and Netflix, and more Peloton riding based on seeing a seminar by Craig DeLarge. Then I'm still paying my 1,000, but the insurance company is going to make more money off me, not less, I would think.
But that's the point, right? Is that the company that sells the procedures and the products that treat your oncology, that treat your cancer, right? It's a cynical thing to
Or
say.
my fat ass,
Or your
getting
diabetes.
type
Yeah,
2
your
diabetes.
diabetes, respiratory, hypertension, whatever, right? They do a better job of marketing to get their products used and they need a customer base, right? So if we were a society that promoted prevention and wellness at the same level that pharmaceutical and medical device companies promote remedies for sickness, fewer people would get sick.
But Craig, that's my damn point, which is the managed care providers ostensibly boost their profits by spending less on my fat ass sitting on the couch.
No, not necessarily. You can sit your behind on the couch, they still collect your premium, and increasingly make you pay the copay alongside. They still pay out to the other companies whose drugs and other therapeutic aids are needed in your therapy. Because you're sick, they get a longer, more profitable cash flow over time.
Maybe the math indicates that, because they're otherwise I would think that they would love to sponsor your programs.
And here's the thing. When they run out of making money on you sitting on the couch being sick, they will put more money into my program, and time will tell.
All right. Again, I didn't mean to take us off on this tangent, but hearing you speak is that you're a guy with tremendous experience across multiple disciplines, and
yes,
where healthcare, communications, and technology come together, you're bringing it on. You're bringing it on, as you describe, in terms of helping life science healthcare company executives be more effective. You're helping it in terms of startups in these two industries as well, or in the same one. And you're getting the word out for best practices that the public can adopt to absorb information that is healthier.
When I left my last pharma job, which was in Singapore, and I came back home, one of the things I did is I spent 4 years working on my public health degree. And it was a real eye-opener for me to study to get a master's of public health, and especially relative to the master's of business administration that I'd gotten 20 years prior. I'm more balanced now, right? I can see this situation through the lens of a global neoliberal capitalist, right? Whose job it is to maximize profitability for investors. And then I can also see it through the lens of everyday citizens in communities who too often get left behind or left to get sick because we generally, as societies, as citizens now, let's bring this back to us, have not advocated. We talk all the time about how we vote and act against our own interests. Healthcare is probably one of the most tragic examples of how we as everyday citizens act, speak, and then ultimately vote against our own interests. And it plays on the most unfortunate aspect of human nature, which is immediate gratification.
Yeah, we all want that dopamine booster from the Mountain Dew, sitting our fat ass on the couch watching Netflix.
Right. And I heard a term the other day. This lady, she talked about dopamine industries. She said there's a whole collection of industries now that make their money out of manipulating the dopamine response in human beings.
Well, that's the essence of digital and social media and trolling on X, and the whole catastrophe is based on that.
Unless we develop the skill
video games.
Yeah, but unless we develop the skill to use the hammer differently. You got a hammer, right? You can break a window or build a house. The hammer doesn't care. Whether that hammer breaks a window or builds a house has to do with the level of skill, discipline, and literacy of the carpenter. My point is that we have an opportunity as citizens, and especially for our children, to be in a position where we take more control over these technologies and how they're impacting us. But unfortunately, up to this point, we have allowed the technology to take more control of us. And that's fundamentally what we're driving at when we talk about technology. Well,
I just have a problem with systemic change from the bottom up because it's so
yeah.
difficult, right?
Well, it's
When
generational.
when opium was flushed into Chinese society
Yes.
deliberately for the sake
Yes.
of profits by the
Yes.
imperial power, it
Yes.
created a billion opium addicts. But the
Yes.
second that the system changed from the top down, Chinese people don't have an innate proclivity to be an opium addict, but the
Yeah.
opium was there.
Yeah.
I have trouble with just being grassroots, and I know
Yeah.
that you're obviously an advocate of top down as well because of your
Yeah.
executive outreach and your
Yes.
work with startups. But as
Yes.
a society, I think we need to bring about change at a systemic level on a part of leadership. And you and I are familiar with, health economic outcomes research,
Yes.
HEOR, right? And the
Yes.
data substantiates everything that you're saying. And
Yes.
ultimately, I think business models could benefit by a
Yes.
healthier population if we look at it holistically like that.
Yes, but I want to ask you to go further upstream, Mook, and consider that historically you can make the case that just about all systemic top-down change started in the grassroots.
That's a great point. That's that's
Yes.
that's legit.
So
That's
so
legit.
the
Everything from civil rights. Civil rights started on a
yes, it
grassroots
does
basis.
this, right?
Had to
So
percolate up. That's
so
right.
I remember when I was in business school, I had my strategy professor said to me, he says, "So Craig, as an innovator, understand that there are very few things that you'll be working on for the rest of your career." And at the time, I was in my mid-30s. He says, "There are very few things that you're working on that will come to fruition during your lifetime." He says, "Thus, you have to understand that change happens one funeral at a time. The current status quo maintains their power by doing what got them that power."
Yeah.
He says that one day you're going to be one of those, senior people also. He says, and so as the South Asian poet Tagore said, we understand the meaning of life when we appreciate that we are working on trees whose shade we will not sit under. So everything that I'm working on, I'm very aware of this. I'm not going to see the fruition of it in my lifetime. It's going to take more than 20 years for this to become standard operating procedure in the culture. But yet, the same way that my grandparents and my ancestors worked on things that they weren't going to see the fruition of, that gives me this wonderful life that I've had, I feel compelled to be working on things that are going to do the same for my grandchildren and my great grandchildren.
Well, let me add a little Pollyanna twist to that in terms of
Shoot.
acceleration, which is the
Uh-huh.
perfect segue to, are you ready for it? Drum roll, please. AI.
Yes.
AI. So, so the good news about AI is it gets to the heart of the quantified self in a truly unprecedented kind of way
Yeah.
of deep acceleration. Back in the day, I think I wrote an article for Pharma Executive or one of those on artificial intelligence going
Yeah.
back to like 2016. It's not a
Yeah.
news flash that this was coming. We
A
didn't
long
really see
time.
it. We didn't really see it as imminent. And the
Yeah.
pharma industry, the healthcare industry, has used AI extensively in its more inchoate form in various ways for decades. This is not a new thing.
No, it's
But
not.
what ChatGPT did at the end of November 2022 was blow the doors off of its capability,
Yeah. It
make it a house of the
consumerized it.
world.
It
Well,
consumerized it.
but it's utterly transformative now
Yeah.
in every way. So
Yes.
what you're espousing is connecting information and insights ultimately with the right people in the right way,
Yeah.
vis-a-vis public health, vis-a-vis best practices and executive
Yeah.
management and even startups.
Yeah.
And the reason I'm fairly Pollyanna about it is because the
Uh-huh.
benefit can outweigh the risk with regard to a lot of what you are getting at.
Yeah.
If if we really need to rely on the end user to be
Yeah.
empowered with their health from a
Yes.
public point of view, right?
Yep. Yep.
Then AI could really help, right? With our personalized bots,
And
with
well,
personalized
it is already.
regimen of health. It's already
Yeah.
taken place.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
So
plugging into that, tell us a little bit about how you're anticipating the inevitable and embracing
yeah.
what we're already going through.
Okay, so I would say same process, different technology.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's fire. We're going to burn down lots of houses and neighborhoods, even
Yeah. It's
cities.
more like a nuclear fusion reactor than just
Okay.
a match, I think.
Yeah, okay.
Right.
But the point is that we're going to blow up a lot of stuff before we learn to cook a nice dinner. And we can see that around us already. And we'll survive it, by the way. It's just that it's going to leave degrees of tragedy and destruction in its wake. Right? So let's just understand that. And all technology does that, by the way. Okay. Now, what we learned, though, from those disasters set us up for a great deal of potential from the standpoint of giving us the ability to have um, better knowledge exchange. I'm going to go back to those 4 applications I talked about earlier. Better knowledge exchange, better and accelerated practice and training. I saw a study the other day about this group of students in Nigeria who accelerated their grade levels in, I forget if it was an elementary or a middle school, but like they gave an AI teaching assistant to a group of students, and like their velocity of learning was exponential. And a lot of it having to do with the fact that the AI was customizing the learning, right? They didn't have to
Yeah.
sit at the pace of everybody in the class. It kind of detected where they were and gave them it's like Tetris. It gave them just the blocks to fill in so that row, you're done. Let's move on, right? When we talk about community, we see that one of the number one uses of Chat GPT right now is companionship. And when you look at that phenomenon, like with any drug or intervention, the poison is in the dose. So we see studies where people are using AI as a companion to a toxic level, poisoning themselves. And unfortunately, we have a few instances of people committing suicide prompted by the AI. That's a
Or
toxic
being
use.
delusional that the
Yeah,
AI blows
psychosis.
blows smoke
Yes,
up their
AI
back
induced.
end that
Yeah,
they're a genius
yep.
or they
AI induced
figured it.
psychosis.
I've
Absolutely.
personally interacted with a few
Yeah.
of these people fairly
Yes.
recently, where
Yep.
their best friend is Claude telling them
Yes.
that they're a genius. Right.
Yes. So in which
Yeah.
case, it's just another form of opium that's being used in a toxic manner. But at the same time, we're also seeing tonic uses, therapeutic uses of AI,
Yeah.
right? In proper dose, proper dose. The poison is in the dose. Remember that. Okay.
And
Okay.
every drug
So
has side effects, including
absolutely.
your chatty bro.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. So, but this is where we need regulation, we need learning, we need literacy, we need community to help us to regulate those effects so that we benefit from it more than we are harmed by it. Then in the fourth area is measurement. So I actually wrote a blog post recently about a talk that I did on AI for wellness. And one of the cases that I used in that, I've been experimenting with an AI microphone. It's called B.Computer. And in using it, I don't know if you're familiar with the principle of strokes to pokes. So, in a relationship, it is therapeutic to offer 4 to 5 compliments for every criticism when you're interacting with another person.
I learned that personally the hard way.
Yes. Well, here's the thing. When
I
I
think
when
I'm
I
still learning it, but, you
Oh,
know,
trust me, I am. Trust me, I am. Because what my AI microphone taught me after listening to me interacting with my family and friends for a week is that I'm much worse than I thought I was. It gave
you bring up a great point. Just to interrupt you as a I've been doing a lot of
Yeah.
podcasts,
Yeah.
and I get the transcript, and actually can see the WAV file, and I could visually see when my bald head is talking and when other people are talking,
Yes.
and it's a visual infographic
There you
representation
go.
of how I have been steamrolling people for years
Right.
and not
Right.
really realizing it.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
being a podcaster has actually taught me better manners,
There you
ability
go.
to listen more than
There you
I
go.
speak. And it's been very therapeutic for me, frankly, to let
Absolutely. There you go.
empower others to own it and
Right.
lead it,
There you
and
go.
for me
So
to
you
be a
said it.
facilitator.
You said it, right?
It's done wonders for me, I have to
Absolutely.
say. Now
Right.
that I interrupted you to say that,
Yeah,
but
but here's the thing. But
yeah,
here's the thing. Think about this now. In our daily consumption of content, the news, right? You hear so much about how the technology is destroying us, and that's valid.
yes,
But we need a better balance of, yes, this is how the technology is hurting us, but let's balance that with how you could proactively be using the technology to benefit you and your family and your employees and your community. And that's what we're working on. Is right? Because I'm afraid that
huge, huge potential.
too much of the discourse is the technology is out of control, it harms us, and we're powerless. What we need to understand is the technology has potential to hurt us, but we have agency. Let's use that agency.
Yeah. And the other
There you
angle
go.
is regulation that you brought up. In
Yes.
principle, we do need to regulate. But as is
Yes.
usually the case, though, the question becomes who's going to do the regulation and how are they going to do it and how are they going to enforce it?
Okay, well, here's the thing. So the government is going to get around to it eventually, but I'm of the mind that we can't die in the meantime.
But even if the
So
government
if,
gets around to it eventually,
yeah.
I'm not sure even the government is the best suited agent for controlling the agents.
Well, I don't think it has to be the best. I think that effective regulation comes from a combination of sources,
Right.
right? So the government is a particular regulatory agent, but then I've got to have self-regulation. I've got to have community regulation, right? Like this I've got to have my doctors who are talking to me about this. I've got to have peer pressure from people that I respect and who influence me. There's got to be a regulatory infrastructure, not just a waiting for the government to do everything for us.
Yeah, again, and that
Right?
goes back to your early point about top down versus bottom up, which is
And we need
the
both. When it's
essence.
healthy, we get
You
both.
need both.
Yeah.
And we're really talking about personal empowerment here across the board. And if AI does have that magic benefit, it's the deep personalization of that opportunity.
So let me push back on that a bit. I have to tell you that my life experience has made me increasingly cynical about personal empowerment. Human beings don't make much productive change outside of community. I think that the better word is community empowerment. Because as you know, we can tell people we can show them all the studies, statistics, give them all the medication, um, patient information, whatever, about how to address their illness, right? But if you send a person with diabetes home to a household and a community where they're still eating a lot of red meat, drinking a lot of alcohol, eating a lot, yeah, Mountain
Netflix.
Dew, eating a lot of cake and cookies,
Yeah.
all that stuff they heard at the doctor's office comes to nothing. We know this from working in the industry. It is when there is a community of support that pressures us That's when we make the most change as human beings.
See, that's the missing link. Remember, I was espousing skepticism about the
Uh-huh.
individual, and
Yeah,
then
yeah,
you
yeah.
push back on the importance and value of grassroots. And I think the
Yeah,
missing link is an excellent one that you bring up right now, which is
yeah,
community,
yeah,
networking,
yeah.
having the critical mass of those in your immediate circle
Yes,
to bolster you up and keep you
yes,
up.
yeah.
And that helps bridge the gap
It
between that
does.
gap that I
A-
was
And let me
I was looking at.
and let me tell you something, Mookie, just to make this political. Most people these days are saying, I don't want to make it political. Let me make it political. I think that in the current times, regardless of which camp you're in, the silver lining of our disappointment is that it is driving us towards community. As we spend less time fixating on what whoever out there is or is not doing, and we reach out to our neighbor, we get to know the people down the street. We come together as local communities and understand that localism works. And we create the grassroots that eventually influences the systemic top down. I think that we, unfortunately, have abdicated citizenship for consumership. We have left too much of what makes for a civil society to people way off somewhere else. We have spent too much time sitting in front of our screens on Netflix rather than going out and interacting with our neighbor. And I know that personally, in the last couple of years, as I have begun to work on living that out versus just talking about it, I am healthier in every part of my life. Even as the economy and the society has gotten worse, I find that my agency, my sense of, but I can do something about this, even though it's not going to happen overnight, has increased. This is what I'm encouraging more and more of my friends and family to take as a posture. Because if we don't take that posture, then we are not worthy of the democracy that we like to talk about.
Yeah, I love that. Look at Craig
Okay.
DeLarge in
All
defense of
right.
tribalism. But that's
Communitarian tribalism, though.
a
Communitarian tribalism.
that's a terrific point, though,
Yeah,
and that
yeah.
really gets to the heart of what you and I and the whole community within digital health has been working on for
Yes,
decades.
absolutely.
Which is we were all about peer-to-peer communication back in
Absolutely.
the early days of the
Yes.
e-patient movement. We were
Yes.
always about the power of technology used in a positive
Yes.
capacity to create virtual communities in
Yes.
lieu of the logistical difficulties of just bringing people together in the real world.
Absolutely. Right.
And the silver lining applies exponentially to AI as well, which
It
does a great
does.
job of understanding content, understanding who
Absolutely.
needs it, and
Absolutely.
ultimately just bringing these two together. That's
I agree.
machine learning at its best.
Agreed. And now let me make a recommendation. The Center for Humane Technology, this is Tristan Harris's organization, who made the Netflix series Social Dilemma. Every month, they do a 1 hour webinar on AI. They call it their monthly AI briefing. I encourage everyone to take an hour a month to listen in on that webinar, where they do a fabulous job of giving an update on the technological and the policy progression or highlights that are going on with artificial intelligence. And I can get you the link for the show notes if you
We
want me
will
to.
put that in the link to your awesome your startup. You have your own startup in a
Yeah,
sense,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
With
yeah.
the
In a
great work
sense. In a
you're doing.
sense,
Right,
yes,
right,
yes,
right. Yeah,
yes,
yeah, yeah. So
indeed.
you're smoking your own stuff in a way that is
Working
bringing
on it.
about a lot of benefit across
Working on it.
the different categories of the great work that you've been
Yeah.
doing for decades.
Yes, yes.
That that is cool. Thanks for making time with us
Yeah,
today.
it's always good
Great.
talking to you, Spitz, and thank you for your example and the work that you're doing. We don't talk every year even, but I'm always tracking you and following the things that you're doing online, and always appreciating and getting a kick out of is either your rants about everyday life or is something insightful that you picked up from how you're experience society that makes me go, there's that Mook giving me another good thought that's, developing my soul and my mind. So thank you for that.
Well, I appreciate that. I think Aristotle said that with time, the innate qualities of a thing become
Yes.
increasingly manifest. So with
True.
time, a stone becomes more of a stone, a
Yes.
lion becomes more of a lion, and as you've
Yes.
seen, the Mookie becomes more of a Mookie.
There you
So
go. Right?
and I think same rules apply to you too, which
For
is
sure.
your independence of thinking, your entrepreneurial
Yes.
spirit, most significantly combined with your compassion and your empathy.
Thank you
And
very much.
I think we've
Appreciate
had this
that.
concurrent evolution toward being better examples of ourselves.
Yeah, I
And
agree with that.
and
Yeah.
you've done those three, and I've gotten increasingly more creative, zanier. And I think, frankly, the world is better for it. I mean, we're here for our own
Yes.
purpose.
I
And
agree.
if we are blessed with the opportunity to just bring it on in the
Yes.
way that the powers that be, in a macro sense, put us here, I
Right.
think everyone's better off.
I agree.
So
Very nice.
thanks again. I'm going to put links to Craig's awesome work.
Yeah, I'll send you a list
organization
of links. Yep.
and resources and the webinar that you recommend and additional resources and your contact info. So if you are
sure. I'll give you my
healthcare and
digital
life
business
science
card.
executive or you're part of a team, you can benefit from Mr. DeLarge.
Yeah.
And if you're a startup in the healthcare life science space and you need that kind of guidance, you're looking at the man. You're hearing from him right now.
Right.
And again, and follow your stuff for picking up even personal best practices for your community to become a healthier person with the tools and tech
that you're already using every day.
Right.
Very nice.
Don't burn the bacon is what I say. Like your example. You need a hot flame, cook it. Crispy bacon. Crispy bacon is the best.
We want to cook dinner. We want to cook dinner without burning down the house. There you go.
Yes. Yeah. The crispy bacon is the best. You're just 10, 20 seconds from ruining it. But if you get it just right, it'll be amazing.
Yes, because everything is better with bacon. We all know that.
That's always. Speaking of health, I'm gonna go check my LDL level after this podcast.
Yeah, be careful. Maybe you should stay with the turkey bacon.
The turkey bacon and the Peloton bike is beckoning.
Okay. Very nice.
Take care, Craig. Thank you.
All right, man. Good talking to you. Be well.
We'll talk again soon.